What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's a Fantasy Alarm live stream. That's right. I'm Howard Bender. With me here, Craig Mish. Mish, what's going on, man? Lots going on here in the wonderful world of MLB. First off, how are you today?
I'm doing well. It was an interesting night in fantasy last night. I think that for a lot of people, Howard, who were playing in the season-long leagues, it's only natural to check your standings. For you, it's not so natural to check standings of 26 different teams that you have. And I get it, but at the same time, it definitely felt good for me last night. I made big jumps in all of my leagues, and Howard, pitching was really the story last night, both in DFS and season-long leagues. And I have a feeling that as the season goes on, even though elite pitching is few and far between, it definitely seems like that was the route to go on draft day. If you don't have an ace or two or three or some viable pitching, wow, these starters that are the 4s and 5s of Major League Baseball teams look like they should be in the minors. So I'm feeling pretty good where I'm at so far. How about you?
Yeah, it was kind of listen, season-wise, I'm great. I'm happy. I'm fine. I'm sitting atop, Labor NL right now in both serious host leagues. I've jumped up. I'm in the top 5 in those. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm not feeling so great about the NL only league that you and I are doing. Man, talk about the need for multi-position eligibility. NL and AL only formats. I mean, it is brutal. I'm sitting here going on, 9 days now without a first baseman because of Will Myers' injury. It's been nasty. But, yeah, listen, last night was a tough one in DFS. Listen, I was fine with the pitchers. I had shares of Thor. Garrett Richards didn't go too well, and we'll talk about that in just a second here. But hitting-wise, oh, man, dude, I'm not afraid to say it, Craig. I shit the bed. I shit the bed hard. I mean, it was like I was trying to fade cores. I wasn't too into the matchups here. I had some hope that John Gray was going to have himself a nice start. Nolan Arenado didn't do anything over there for the Rockies. So I wasn't too upset about fading cores. But, oh, man, talk about making a mistake here going with my Mets stack. Because, and here's the lesson learned to everybody, check your team's travel plans. Like, if you're going to bulk up on a team, I didn't realize that the Mets had the travel issues that they did based on the night before going into extra innings, that they didn't get into Miami yesterday until about 4:30 in the morning. They didn't take any batting practice to save everybody. They did some stretching and some minor work there. So they were ice cold coming into that game. I paid the price for that. But, for the same token, listen, so did everybody who went with Bryce Harper and Anthony Rendon and, all these guys. It's really tough this part of the season here. I'm not going to sit here and make excuses. There were some bad choices, and it happens. But if you look at some of the guys, some of the top plays from yesterday, unless you had, some juicy ads in the Phillies stack, it was rough all around offensively there. So it's tough because you're sitting here and you're like, well, I want to go off of this year's numbers and see what everybody's doing, but there's really not enough of a sample size. So when you're talking about weighted on base average or isolated power numbers, you have to look at both this year and last year and see where these guys kind of hover still for their averages. So tough all around here. Seasonal wise, great. DFS wise, yesterday was as yucky as you could possibly get.
Right. So let me give you my view on it. And obviously you play more DFS, and fantasyalarm.com, has a beat on everything in terms of DFS. And I don't play every single day, but if I did, here's what I would do. And I have some advice today. I've kind of looked at the matchups here. I think I have an idea for how I would play it. I'm paying up for the pitching, and I'll explain to you why. I don't think it's a matter of anything that anyone is doing wrong, but I think the factor that we're not playing into this thing is the weather. It is so hard to hit in cold weather. The pitchers have a distinct advantage, and I think you're going to see that play across the board. I think we had 7 pitchers last night that struck out 9 different batters. It's not because those pitchers are all great. Yeah, you had Kluber and you had Scherzer and you had Syndergaard pitching, but Jay Happ and some of these other guys who are striking out 9 batters, Dylan Bundy, he may be okay, but he's not a 10 strikeout guy. He's never been that in the past. The weather's playing a huge factor in these games. Just look at that St. Louis-Milwaukee game. The Cardinals are the most passionate fans in the game. Those guys go to the game 2 hours before. They stay 2 hours after. There was nobody at that game last night. The weather is too cold. It's factoring in terms of pitchers, and I think pitchers have the advantage in this early part of the season. When the weather gets warmer, the bats will heat up. I just don't think that you're going to see it yet. Now, in terms of what you mentioned, With the Mets and the Marlins last night, I can tell you this, going to these games in Miami, when the roof is open, the bats don't play. It's just a fact. The ball does not carry. The windows are open. There's a stream that comes across on those back windows at Marlins Park. I would not advise stacking any offense there. It seemed reasonable considering the Marlins gave up 20 runs a few days ago. But when the games are in Miami and the roof is open, you would seem to say, well, I mean, it'll be a little bit warmer. It's 80 degrees in Miami. It just hasn't played like that for the Marlins or for their opponent.
Definitely not. Definitely not. You know what? I don't even want to talk about that game. It was so disgusting for me. It was so disgusting. I was nauseated. So let's just move on. Let's talk about, you talked about that Cardinals-Brewers game. Lots going on in that one here. Brewers dealing with a lot of troubles for themselves. Obviously, Corey Knebel going down was a big deal. Christian Yelich added to the DL over the weekend. Him being out, striking out at like an alarming 30% clip against right-handed pitching. So for me, I was sitting there looking at that matchup, thought maybe Michaelis might have had himself a decent outing there. It went back and forth. It wasn't an atrocious day for them, but I think really the highlight here is the bullpen. Greg Holland, yuck.
Wow.
4 walks in that one. I mean, obviously, I'm willing to give this guy a pass considering this was his first outing. He signed late. I don't know how much work he got in, but that was aggravating. Jacob Barnes coming in the 8th inning. That was a little disappointing there. Matt Albers, he backdoored into that win, but he did get the blown save. He didn't look good. We talked about this. We talked about the possibility that Barnes would get the first opportunity. Barnes would be the guy. It looked like it went towards Albers yesterday here. And then again, you had an article on fantasyalarm.com which broke down the entire bullpen for Milwaukee. Do you still see it as Barnes being the primary guy here, or is this just going to be Craig Counsell mixing and matching?
Yeah, I feel a lot better after last night if I bid on Barnes, that's for sure, because Albers proved what he proved last year in Washington. Remember, Albers got a little bit of a chance last year with the Nationals and was very shaky, and they removed him very quickly. I don't understand why Hader doesn't get the opportunity. I guess they still want him in those middle innings, but if the Brewers didn't learn anything from last night, yeah, you'd want him there, and Arizona wants Archie Bradley in the 7th and 8th, and Davinsky, we want those guys. But if you don't have anyone in the 9th that can lock it down, you have to use them. I still think Barnes, because of that performance, ends up getting the next save opportunity. So I still think he's the guy for the time being there. Hoover, who I talked about in the article, got called up, by the way, immediately after that. So now he is in the mix. Jeffers is obviously not. They keep using him in the 5th and 6th innings. So at least for the time being, he would appear to be out. And on the flip side, both in DFS and season long, I think the Brewers have some things that we got to talk about here because you look at it, and Lorenzo Cain went down in that game last night. So somebody who I talked about on SiriusXM this morning, both in season long and DFS, is Brett Phillips' turn. Maybe it's his turn now to play every single day in the outfield. If they don't have Cain for a few days and they don't have Yelich, they called Phillips up. I think he's going to play. Now, in DFS, I don't know that I would throw him against Carlos Martinez tonight, but after this game is over tonight, I may have to start considering him as a cheaper option on FanDuel and DK. If you're playing on those sites, I definitely would. Phillips has talent. He just hasn't had a spot to be able to play. I didn't think he'd have any shot to play Howard this year with all those outfielders they have. But 2 guys go down, and he's in play. As far as St. Louis is concerned, the Holland thing was just unexplainable. I mean, he walked a couple of guys. There was a sacrifice bunt, and then they wanted to walk another guy, which would have been the 3rd walk to face Orlando Arcia, which at the time you said to yourself, okay, this makes a little bit of sense. Arcia's not hitting, so we'll put him on. And then probably what they'll do is, I'm saying to myself, they'll take Holland out. They'll bring in Bud Norris, who's warming up. Nope. They left Holland in there. He walked in another guy. Like, I mean, by the way, and I mentioned this too, Howard Holland on Saturday in his final minor league appearance faced the Marlins Single-A affiliate in Jupiter and gave up a run. So that should have been a pretty good indication that, hey, maybe let's move him up from Single-A to Triple-A or something. Just give him, another appearance or 2, and they didn't, and it turned out to be a really big mistake. And for me, if Bud Norris is sitting on the waiver wire in a season-long league, I gotta feel like he's got to be owned in 100% of leagues at this point.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think that they signed Greg Holland to, a $14 million deal to not have him close. Maybe they're going to have to ease him in a little bit, but I mean, this is not a situation where it's like, oh yeah, we'll go with we'll put Holland in the eighth, we'll go with Bud Norris for a while. I can't see that happening. If anything, Mike Matheny will botch that as well. So.
Yeah, I don't agree. I don't agree at all with you. Like they signed Holland to a 1-year deal. I know they want him to be the closer, but if they gave Bud Norris 10 save opportunities right now, starting now, and he saved them all, you'd remove him and put Holland in there? You think if Mark Melancon is healthy, making $70 million, if Hunter Strickland doesn't blow a save for the next 2 months, that Melancon has any shot to close? The answer is none. So I understand, in theory, Holland is brought in to be the closer. I think he will be the closer. But let's also not dismiss that when Bud Norris was with the Angels for a 2-month period, he was the best closer in the American League. And then he got hurt and things happened and that changed. He may get hurt in St. Louis and it may change. But the Cardinals are under 500 already, Howard. This is not a team that like the Houston that's 9-2, and every win does count. Would I want Holland? And do I think he's the primary guy? Absolutely. After watching last night, for the rest of the week, I wouldn't feel comfortable having Holland, and I have him on one of my teams.
All right, well, I'm going to breathe a little bit easier here. I'm going to understand that this was just could be a rough outing, could just be he needs to ease himself into the season a little bit more. I can't, not only because I own him in one league, but just because I sit here and I look at some of these guys and I look at some of the signings. You know, you look at Lance Lynn making his way back. He signed late. Jake Arrieta, he got yanked from his start because he was a little on the erratic side there, said that he felt he was a little amped up. You know, I mean, a lot of these late signings here, I think that this is something that we need to address with people, and they need to understand that when you've got a situation where the guy sits out all spring long, he might be throwing. Sure, he's probably throwing in a facility somewhere. Maybe it's his backyard. I don't know, but he's not throwing with the rest of the team. He's not, competing in the spring games the way he is. So, yeah, I mean, my feeling is extended spring training. If that's going on, why are they not there? Why are they not making more appearances there? The teams seem to be rushing them in based on the fact that, well, we invested in this guy finally. We want him to perform. So, interesting. All right, let me talk about a couple of other guys, some other reactions to last night's games, because if I sit here and I talk about Greg Holland even more, I'm going to probably puke on the floor somewhere. Then it's going to smell. I'm going to have some issues, and nobody needs that. Nobody needs. I'm going to spit up on that fine shirt of yours. Actually, is that you're sporting a little sweater there? Or is that a one piece there?
It's my little no. It's a short sleeve shirt. It's my little styling live stream shirt.
Very handsome guy. Look at you.
I even shave for these. By the way.
See, I trimmed the beard the other day because I was going to the ballpark and didn't want to sit out in the sun with Oh,
you went to a game? You got out there.
I did.
Which game did you go
to? Giants Dodgers.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice. It was all right. It was all right.
No fighting, Howard.
What's that?
No fighting at the game.
No fighting. Yeah. Yes, that's me. That's me, man. I'm like Mr. Rough and tumble, rah rah. Don't talk bad about my team. Jackasses. Nothing but jackasses. Anyway, let's talk about last night's action here. Let's talk about Garrett Richards. Jim and I were talking on yesterday's show. We love the matchup for Garrett Richards. Another short outing. I'm starting to get a little concerned about Garrett Richards with the control and the command. 9 walks now in 15 innings. That's not good. That's not good. The strikeout rate seems to be fine, but he's not going deep into games. This was his shortest outing. What was it, 4 2/3? I'm a little concerned about him here at the start of the season, especially because we're talking about it's supposed to be advantage pitcher instead because of the weather here. Not seemingly the case here with Garrett.
No, and I didn't really have a high investment at all in him, and based on where you draft him in a season-long league, I don't know that there was a ton of investment. Maybe there was more of a dart throw, I would say, on him just because of the injury problems that he's had the last couple of years. Look, there'll be some matchups for him at some point that will be better. Although last night was pretty good. You're right. That was one on paper that should have came through, but he's going to face the Astros a bunch. Seattle's not a bad team. Other than Ohtani, I don't know that anybody in that rotation I would trust 100%, but I think you make a great point. If you can't shut down Texas, who are you going to shut down? That Texas team is not going to be good this year, and Texas now is without DeShields and Odor. So we'll get to that matchup a little bit later. I do kind of like the Angels, but I think last night's one of those deals where you just got to eliminate that one and jump right back on the Angels tonight.
Okay, I can dig that. A couple of questions we got in the chat room, and again, guys, you can find us here. We're on Periscope, Facebook, YouTube. So get your questions in. That's why we're here. That's why I got Craig locked down. Craig, let's ask some questions here. All right, so at Pete Smick. Friend of the show, friend of the channel, everything, friend of Fantasy Alarm. He's like a trade waiver wire like nut job. I love you, Pete, but yeah, he's definitely got some OCD issues here when it comes to fantasy baseball.
Okay, that's fine.
He sees the news that Nick Senzel is moving over to third base in the wake of the whole Eugenio Suarez injury. Right. They talked about Phil Gosselin and, I don't know, some other schlub to sit and do the patchwork.
Hey,
here.
I picked up that schlub.
Right, okay. So now all of a sudden, now they turn around and they say that we're going to move Senzel back over to third base. And the minors, what are we looking at as far as like a pickup goes? Because Pete wants to know. He's looking to drop somebody. He's already stashing Acuna. He's already stashing Victor Robles. He's got very limited bench space now. I think he's got like 2 or 3 spots. Talking about dropping Michael Wacha to stash Nick Senzel here again. Can you do that? Do you consider this a wise move? If you're going to sit here, you're going to start stashing all these minor leaguers, shorten up your bench. I mean, this would be Robles, who I don't necessarily know if he even comes up in the first half at all. Acuna's supposed to be up, which means he's going to have to drop a productive outfielder or a productive player as is. And then who knows what happens with Senzel is whether or not they bring him up. Give me your thoughts on the Senzel situation with the Reds, and then let's address Pete's problem of whether or not to drop a guy like Michael Wacha, Josh Hader maybe, and then try and replace those guys with like a Lance Lynn or a Mike Leake.
Yeah, I think we'll touch on all 3 rookies. Acuna's off to a slow start in AAA. But I do think he will come up at some point. It just, the timeline may have been pushed back a little bit based on the way that Preston Tucker has played. Maybe instead of mid-April, it's late April. I have no worries with him. We'll go to Victor Robles. Got hurt yesterday in a spring training game. Could be serious. He had an MRI today. Fell down in the outfield. Hurt his either wrist or shoulder. If that's an injury that is a long injury, any kind of surgery, then you could just cut Robles altogether. So that's the second thing. In terms of Senzel, this is the interesting one. I don't know what the Reds' plan is. It's very bizarre with the way that they're handling this whole thing. It does appear as though service time is the main issue with Senzel. I would guess that he'll be up in mid-May when service time is not an issue for him. Are we supposed to read that this is more of a serious injury for Suarez, or potentially are they going to move Suarez over, Howard? I think there's a chance of that. Maybe they move Suarez to shortstop because he's had some experience playing there in the past, and Senzel plays third. I think that's the more likely outcome here. But keep in mind, if you're holding any of these guys, you're waiting a month on Senzel. You could be waiting months on Robles, and we're at the point where so many injuries are happening in fantasy. You're very fortunate if you haven't had any and you can hold on to these guys. I think Acuna is the only one right now that I would say is a surefire roster stash at this point, and that's it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm with you there. So there you go, Pete. Check the status of Victor Robles because that might be your drop that you're going to have to do. All right, over on Facebook, I got Scott Crump saying he's currently got 3 Royals pitchers on his staff.
Congrats.
Right? Mazel tov. Great job drafting. All right, but he's going to need to drop. Who do you like for the rest of the season between Jacob Junis, Danny Duffy, and Ian Kennedy? Now, Kennedy, good debut for him, but, yeah. I mean, how do you trust Ian Kennedy based on what he's done in the past? Danny Duffy's looked like hot garbage so far this season. I've never been a big fan of his. And then Jacob Junis, let's talk about it here. 7 shutout innings again, 14 scoreless frames here to start the season. Good strikeout numbers, not great strikeout numbers, but good strikeout numbers. And he seems to be commanding the strike zone really, really well here. He's just not walking guys either. Thoughts on Junis, and really, how does Scott hold on to another one of these Royals pitchers? He can't.
No, you got to cut Kennedy and just say thank you for that first start and be done with it. Junis has showed some good upside. He's worth keeping for sure. Also depends on the format and what kind of fantasy league you're playing, and that's really key. Because I do think Duffy will be okay. It's just I agree with you. He's looked awful. He looked awful in the spring, by the way, too, and this just seems to be carrying over. The reality with the Royals is that at best they're probably like a 75 win team. And while you can't really predict wins in fantasy, I think you have a pretty good idea. The Royals offense isn't very good. And so all three of those pitchers are going to have a hard time winning games. I mean, you see what it's going to be required for Junis to win games. They're going to have to score runs. I mean, 1-0 games, 2-0 games. Their bullpen's been okay so far. I'd feel uncomfortable having 2 Royals on my team, let alone 3 in a 12-team league or a 15-team league. Not so much, but you're absolutely right. Junis is somebody that should be owned in every fantasy league right now.
Yeah, you might as well hold on to him. Absolutely. Yeah, Scott, I understand that Kennedy and Junis are both pitching real well. I wouldn't trust Kennedy here.
No.
All right, Mauricio Vargas wants to know Jacob Barnes or Matt Albers, and is Blake Parker worth holding on to?
Oh boy, Barnes still for me. I'll still stick with Barnes, not Albers. No, and I don't know. It's a really good question. What do you think, Howard? I don't know.
Listen. I think it's a timeshare in. I almost said Anaheim. Ooh, Los Angeles.
At best. I think Middleton is the guy we've talked about. I think eventually we'll get the opportunity there. Bedrosian. There's only 2 or 3 situations that I want no part of in fantasy. I'm even willing to take my Greg Holland, Bud Norris. I'm good with that. That's a team that's going to win a lot of games, and I want that. I don't want any part of the Angels, even though they're good. I just have no clarity there. I don't want any part of Detroit's situation. Detroit is, I don't know. Their team is, the closer isn't good and the team is not good. So I just don't want a part of that, as opposed to San Diego where, Brad Hand, the Padres have 3 wins. Brad Hand has 3 saves. Why? Brad Hand is a great reliever. I don't see any reliever there in Detroit. And Miami's situation is also difficult. I think that if Ziegler got the opportunities, then he'd save a lot of games. But in games that the Marlins are playing in, they'll be very fortunate to play in a lot of 3-2 games. It seems like they're going to get blown out a lot. And so, unfortunately, and it's not really an indictment of Ziegler. I think that he'll be good in the first half, but not going to get a lot of save opportunities. The Marlins have only had 1 save opportunity this season. So no part of the Angels, no part of Detroit. And I really, even though I own Ziegler in a couple of leagues, I don't really want a big part of Miami.
All right. Looking over here on Periscope, at Z_Hess5 wants to know how you view Jacob Faria this season. He got his ass whooped in his first outing.
Off my team, no more starts for Jacob Faria. Got to show me something at this point. Can't start him in fantasy, and if I could find somebody else better, I would. Tampa's not good. Young kid, nice upside there. How can you start him in any league at this point? You got to be nuts. Walking all those guys? No way. Sorry. Where's the good start coming from for Faria? Against Detroit? No. Gone.
Yeah.
No clue. Sorry.
No clue. All right. At CJ_Schroeder16, who would you recommend for holds in a head-to-head league? Who are your top guys for holds here? Are you locked into the guys like Davinsky and Hader and Andrew Miller? You're looking at some lefty specialists out there, maybe. Who are your top guys for holds?
Yeah, I'll give you some sleepers because I'm not playing in any leagues with holds this year, but I'll give you some guys. Robert Gazelman on the Mets has been awesome. AJ Ramos on the Mets has been awesome too. And the Mets aren't letting their pitchers go deep into games, and they're winning every one of them. So you're racking up holds with all of those Mets relievers. So I think that's a good option. Another pitcher that I caught this morning in speaking on San Diego, and he's not somebody that has really any fantasy value outside of holds, is Craig Stammen on San Diego. With Yates out, Stammen has not given up a run in 8 1/3 innings, and he's looked great. So maybe he is the setup guy right now to get to hand. The Padres are not going to win 90 games, but as long as Yates is out, they have Makita there, and they have Stammen. And we all remember Stammen in Washington when he was really good. I don't even remember saying his name the last couple of years, but he's been good so far. Those are kind of some sneaky options, I would say, to go with.
Right on, right on. All right, Chris Wolf over in the on the old YouTube page. Is it okay to drop Odor for Chris Owings at shortstop? I would DL him, but still have Samardzija, Healy, Bird, Yelich, and Souza taking up all his DL spots right now.
I can't answer that until I know the extent of Odor's injury. It's not a fair. I mean, I wouldn't do it yet. Like I would have to wait, because if Odor is only out for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, which is probably not going to happen, but let's just say it is, how can you justify keeping Greg Bird over Odor in that spot? Based on all those names that you gave me, I'd cut Greg Bird. If Odor is going to be out if it's a torn hamstring and it's an 8 to 12 week injury, absolutely, you cut Odor.
Yeah. All right. So, Chris, you're just going to have to kind of bide your time here and just see what happens, what comes up. All right. Let's see. Ooh, man, my eyes, Craig, my eyes just aren't what they used to be. I'm having trouble seeing some of these names, but it looks like at Kyle the Kid wants to know, man, Ian Happ, this dude droppable yet?
Not droppable, but I'll tell you what could happen here that's bad news for Happ is that Rizzo went on the DL, okay? So Happ for the next 10 days is safe. I think he's still going to play, but he's got to pick it up and hit well, I think, before the end of the month. Or if Ben Zobrist hits a little bit with Rizzo being out, Zobrist could fit back into that role that he had previously before they gave Happ the job. So it may actually be, if I have Happ in a league, I may want to stash Zobrist just in case, because look, I don't think that he's going to set the world on fire, but if he does, all of a sudden now Happ finds himself in another platoon with Ben Zobrist and Almora. It's not a preferable situation. So you got to hang on to Happ. You got to give it at least 10 more days.
Yeah, see how things unfold with this back injury. Lots of injuries that we're dealing with right now, Craig.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. So Suarez out with the fractured thumb. How about Bogaerts? Xander Bogaerts. So it's a crack. It's a fracture in the in one of the bones in his ankle, but they say no surgery is required, and they're actually only putting like a 2-week timetable on this. 2 weeks seems a little bit on the short side for an ankle fracture. I'm sorry, if you're a professional athlete, you got to round the bases. That's going to be the big key for him. Is can he round the bases? Can he pivot left and right laterally in the field with that ankle? Do you see it being 2 weeks? You see it maybe being more? And who the hell? They just brought up some dude from the minors. I can't even remember his name right now. But, I mean, who's going to pick up the slack there? Brock Holt? Is Brock Holt the ad?
No, and that's a tough position for us to start calling out names, because this is like a more league-specific thing where somebody has to send us, hey, who's on the waiver wire? Like, I got a question yesterday about it, and the names were 2 Ahmeds. Nick Ahmed and Ahmed Rosario. I'm like, okay. And by the way, Ahmed Rosario's looked okay. Like, if he's available in some league that's shallow in a 10 or 12 team and you have Bogaerts, that may not be a bad play. I can't speculate on injuries because I don't know. Another name, maybe Franklin Barreto got called up by Oakland. He'll qualify at middle infield for now. Maybe he plays a little bit of outfield. He's unowned in a lot of leagues. Stash him. Wait and see. But impossible to speculate. And when it comes to these shallow positions like catcher and shortstop and even second base to a degree, Howard, like I could rattle off all the guys who I think may be available. It's not helping anyone. You kind of have to tell us, like, here are my choices. Who is the best option?
Yeah, context is everything, guys. And we go through this. I know that the Twitter machine gave you all those extra characters. Now at least you can tell us the size of your league, style of your league. That kind of makes things a little easier than just saying, should I trade this guy for this guy? Should I drop this guy for this guy? It's all about context. It's all about what you need. It's the same thing with a lot of these trades. I mean, how many times are you seeing these overreaction trades right now? I got a trade in. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see if I deleted that email or not. But it was really interesting because the question that I asked the guy was what are you trying to accomplish by making this deal? And it was like Goldie, DeYoung, and I think Justin Upton for Rizzo, Jose Ramirez, and Avi Garcia. And I'm like, okay.
I don't even know if I can figure that out.
But my feeling about it was, okay, so you're getting what? You're getting more steals at first base. You got 2 power hitting first basemen. You're downgrading probably in some speed, although Jose Ramirez doesn't really steal bases very much, but I put him over DeYoung any day. And then Justin Upton and Avi Garcia, yeah, Upton's definitely the better player. But what are you doing here? Well, I mean, it seems to me like a lateral move. A lot of people sit there and they make these trades just based on what these guys have done so far this season without looking ahead, looking at the projections, looking at thoughts of, where this lineup is going. And all of a sudden they're making these deals that they're just spinning their wheels the entire time. I mean, you have to be able to make sure that you're actually getting something out of this other than, I just like this player better.
Yeah, I think that just in general, and it's not an easy question to answer because everyone has a different league, but Paul Goldschmidt in trades right now, you should be on the receiving end in virtually every trade of Paul Goldschmidt. But that's the way that I would put it right now. If there's a trade out there, you should be getting Goldschmidt. If you're proposing Goldschmidt, you're making a mistake. Why are you making a mistake? Not because it's only 10 days. That's not the reason why. It's because you're selling low. You never want to sell low in fantasy. It can't get any worse for Goldschmidt. It's just not possible. You have 5 years of track record and MVP type numbers. You shouldn't be trading him because you're trading him at his lowest point, and that's the biggest point that I can make in fantasy. Luis Castillo on the Reds. You shouldn't be trading him right now. No way. You should be adding him in fantasy because, again, a player at their lowest point. And that's just a good rule of thumb moving forward if you're playing in a rotisserie league or points league or any fantasy league. You always want to be getting those guys that have the great track record. A good example of the opposite. Should you be running after Byron Buxton? Look, I think we all think he's going to have a great year and be the guy we thought. But I wouldn't be chasing him down under that expectation because we simply don't know. That's a guy that you'd have to work out a creative deal if you really wanted to attack him. We couldn't make any guarantees because Buxton's been, in 2 years, good for 4 months. In 2 years. And has had a bad April again. So you have to look at it. Each situation is different. But bona fide stars like Goldschmidt should be on the receiving end. Joey Votto on the receiving end.
Agreed. All right, let's talk about a couple of other things. Let's see. Where's my topics list here? All right, so we're covering the injuries here. What about this is a big one here. And I've been getting this question a lot, and it's kind of interesting. It's the whole Brad Peacock situation going on in Houston. It seems like AJ Hinch seems to be favoring Brad Peacock in that role that Chris Davinsky used to dominate in. But what I love about Peacock is that he's coming in the late innings. He's grabbing some saves. At some point, unless this rotation stays 100% healthy, and I don't know a single rotation that stays 100% healthy for the entire season, Peacock then slides into that role where he ends up starting the 5 innings, and then we turn it over to the bullpen here. Ken Giles just picked up his first save of the season. Peacock's already got more saves than him. You and Jim had AJ Hinch on SiriusXM Fantasy Baseball. You guys have talked to him about it. How is this situation shaking out? I kind of feel like Peacock, even in a 12-team league, is kind of a must-add here because he's doing so many different things right now.
Yeah, I think so. And this is kind of the strange part for me a little bit. What I think the Astros did, you look at it, they won the World Series last year, and Carlos Beltran retired. But beyond that, Howard, think about this. Who did they lose from that roster in 2017? Like, there was no player they traded. They let Francisco Liriano go. He wasn't a big part of what that team did. And the Astros organization is very loyal. Like, they brought everyone back again. But Howard, Ken Giles is not going to be the closer of the Astros in the postseason. You think they're going to go down that road again? There's no chance of that happening. I don't care. They did a nice thing for Ken Giles. They brought him back. They gave him the closer's role again. He struggled at the early part of the season. That was a bad fantasy pick, man. Like, you have to know at some point, if the Astros have a weakness, what are they going to do? They're going to go out and get the very best. They're all in again on this year. They're 9-2. They're going to win 112 games. People laughed at me. Giles is not your closer in the World Series or in the postseason. They're not going to even try it. So you're right. Peacock could be the guy. They went out. They got 2 former guys who could close, Rondon, Joe Smith. I would own them in fantasy leagues probably too. I think Joe Smith has a chance to be the 9th inning guy there. I wouldn't discount that either. Ken Giles, Howard, where Ken Giles needs to go. He needs to go to like the Marlins, the Tigers, and you know what? He'll save every game for them. He'll save 40 games. But what we've seen is when the ultimate pressure is on this guy, he crumbled. He crumbled, and I would not feel comfortable owning him. Will Peacock be the guy? Maybe. Could be. Could be Joe Smith. Could be Rondon. The Astros are probably like, who cares? We're up 5-0 in every game. We don't even need a guy. They don't care. They don't care. They're going to be like 21-3. Like seriously. And it just, you would think on a great team like that you would want the closer. And it may be just one of those teams that they're winning by so many runs and they're dominating everyone with their pitching that it's a situation to stay away from the time being.
Very possible. Very possible. All right. Mauricio Vargas over on Facebook wants your thoughts on a pair of players off to really nice starts. Let's start with Zach Godley. Great outing last night for him. I mean, obviously it's the Giants and they're trash as far as the lineup goes. So I don't. Yeah, right. They're garbage. They're garbage.
They'll be all right.
They suck. Right. What do you mean they're going to be all right? When Joe Panic is your biggest power hitter,
McCutchen.
Yeah, until he's got to like chase down a fly ball into Triples Alley, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, Miami, I'm done."
He'll be all right.
All right. Well, I think they're a piece of crap team and a piece of crap lineup. And listen, and you're talking to Evan Longoria's biggest fan. Like he needed a restraining order against me because I was like, "I love you so much, Evan. I do."
They'll be fine.
All right. Well, Zach Godley beat the snot out of him last night.
Zach Godley could be a great pitcher. Yeah, Zach Godley could be a great pitcher. I think a lot of people thought that going into the season. How Taijuan Walker was taken ahead of him in drafts, I'll have no idea. I don't own Godley anywhere, but he looked good last year. He looks good again now. And I don't know what the commentary should be here because he's owned in every fantasy league, so there's just not much you can do. Great DFS option, I would suppose, also. And their bullpen, Howard, is fantastic. I mean, Archie Bradley is as good a setup guy as anybody in the game. And Boxberger, totally wrong on that. Did not see Boxberger being the closer there. He's been lights out. Hirano, they got in the offseason. He's been lights out too. Ironically, it's the offense for Arizona. Who would have thought that the offense for Arizona is the problem? They don't have Goldschmidt. Jake Lamb is on the DL. Tomas is gone, and he was nothing for them. They just don't. JD Martinez is gone too. They just don't have a great offense. It's going to be Arizona's pitching that's going to carry them. Never would have thought that, but that's where we're at.
Well, everybody walking in, humidor.
It didn't look like it early. I don't know.
No,
now.
It didn't.
Like I'm gonna probably wait on that to make the final call on that.
You have to wait on
5 or 6 more games or something.
You have to wait on that. That's data that you're not going to really know for another couple of weeks, in my opinion. Here. All right. So you do like Zach Godley moving forward. He's a guy that you can get behind, right?
Yeah, I would say that in a 12-team league, 5x5 rotisserie league, I would feel very comfortable with him as my 3. Absolutely. No, and in a points league, same thing. He is on a reality team, he could be a 2, maybe even a 1. On my fantasy team, if he was my 3, I would feel awesome about it. Yes.
All right, let's turn to the hitting side here. Mauricio wants to know about a Jim Bowden favorite, Gregory Polanco. Man, I mean, I don't think a show goes by where we don't talk about Ohtani or talk about Gregory Polanco here. So let's get it out on Polanco. He's off to a great start. This is not the start that he had last year, which obviously makes it a little bit more encouraging. Pittsburgh showing a little gumption here. I wasn't writing them off, so to speak, but I wasn't really in love with the team very much. Mm-hmm. But Polanco has really been a dynamic player for them right now. And I mean, here's a power speed combo. Can you get behind him, or do you think that this is just that hot start and things will all kind of level off?
Yeah, I could get behind him being very good. I had him last year everywhere, so it was a big disappointment for me. I didn't go back down the road this year, but I commend anybody who did. The only thing is for where you drafted him in fantasy, 100%. He's going to be not only worth the pick, but a higher value. But I feel like there are a lot of guys who can hit 25 home runs and drive in 90. And if Gregory Polanco at the end of the season hits 295 with 24 home runs, and 98 runs driven in and scores 80 runs and only steals 5 bases, yeah, I mean, it's a really good and better year than we thought he was going to have. But that was a guy that was tied to stealing bases. Look at track record with him, 20, 30 steals every year. And yes, he'll be a better player than what we thought. But for Gregory Polanco to be a star in this league, it's got to be 300, 30, 100. Is he going to do that in that lineup? I'm not willing to say that yet. So I think we got to slow down a little bit here because steals, I thought, Howard, were tied to what made this guy a potential second or third round pick in fantasy. And without stealing, I'd rather have Marte. I mean, that's just it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough. And, yes, 300, 3,100 would be great. He's just not built like that. I just don't think that he's built like that. You give me 300, 20, 20, 80, I'm a happy camper.
Right.
I'll be all right with that. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
It's a sunny day in South Florida. What can I tell you? I got the nice sun coming in here. It's can't go to any games though this week, man. Bummed out.
Aww.
Yeah, the wife decided to head to Vegas. Hope she comes back.
Ooh. I'll refrain comment here. Right, we'll keep this live stream sort of PG today. Shh.
All right. There, so I'm taking care of everything on the home front. I'll be at the Marlins Pirates Friday night. Hot ticket.
Oh, nice.
Hot ticket.
But in the meantime, you're like a single dad right now. You're taking care of the kids. You got to do everything.
I think it's fair, but listen, she spends 45 days when I'm at spring training on doing the same thing. So it's a trade-off.
Let me confide something in you here because, just between you and me, don't tell anybody. I hate when my wife goes away because I have to do everything around here. I got to take care of the dogs, everything.
Right, you have dogs too. Mm-hmm.
When she's away, dude, the peace and quiet. Yum.
I hear you. Yeah. No, there's listen, the one thing that I can say that definitely is easier right now is once the kids are in bed, last night, just checking all my fantasy teams, like that's the hardest part of the season. I know you texted me about it. Like when we do all this preparation, it's fun and we're back on the air. You're on there all the time, but I'm back on the air talking baseball again. And then that first week, and it just hits you like, oh no, I got 15 teams to manage. And we get in that groove and it becomes easier, but it's just I only have like 4 or 5 teams. I know you have a ton. It's a bear to do it. And then some teams I'm feeling good about, some teams not so good. But I got to say, as compared to last year, my teams are much better. And I was so bad last year that I'm happy with the way that things have started so far.
Yeah, I got whooped by the injury bug last year. This year, it's definitely coming out a nicer start. Easily manage your teams. Go to fantasyalarm.com. You got to check out the new personalization there.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I saw that about that.
Yeah, there's a link up top on the homepage of Fantasy Alarm, and it's My Fantasy Alarm. Click on that. You can sync in all your leagues, your Yahoo leagues, your ESPN leagues, RT Sports. We're getting the capability for other random sites that are out there, maybe fan tracks.
Right.
But you can. It's literally the one-stop shop, and you can go through all of your teams, all of your leagues, check out all your pickups and whatnot. There, it's seriously a much better way. Oh, dude, check this page out, and guys, if you're watching right now, just go to fantasyalarm.com. And check out. It's a green link right up top there. It's right next to the GoPro link at the on the top right. It's a game changer. Like to be able to have all your leagues in one spot so that you can do, and it's all linked to our tools. So all your research can be done right then and there. You don't have to keep clicking back and being like, oh, do I have this guy on this team? Do I have this guy on that team?
Amazing.
All locked in there. You guys don't want to miss out on this. It's ridiculous. And yeah, listen, 12 leagues, dude.
I don't know how you're doing it.
12 leagues blows. It blows. It's like a nightmare.
The sweet spot is like 3 leagues,
Yeah.
Once you get to 4 and 5, you have a lot, but you can do it. Anything above that. And then we get the email that they're going to do another league. Like, did you really respond and say you wanted to do that? Like, please don't tell me you said yes to that.
I haven't responded to it yet.
Just don't respond.
If it's best ball, then it's no maintenance. Then I'll just draft and comment on the draft and not look at the league for the rest of the season there.
Well, if that's the case, then I guess my suggestion would be is that if anyone's going to do a fantasy league right now on top of all the leagues you have, just for our purposes especially, just make it a mock draft. Like, I don't know. Like I'm shivering at the thought, Howard, of running another league, man. And I guess for people out there who are watching and going, "Oh, this is your job. You shouldn't be complaining." I totally get it. You guys are right. You guys are right. This is my job, and I shouldn't be complaining. But a lot of us in this industry, in the fantasy industry, in the media industry, we don't just have one job. Like it makes everyone just kind of feels like, oh, all Howard does is these live streams and does some stuff with Fantasy Alarm, and he's on the air from 4 to 6. Oh, all I do from 9 to 11 is a radio show, and I'm completely done. Like, I would never survive in this world just doing one thing. So fantasy leagues, it is a bear to do multiple leagues. Now, I personally would still want all my formatted leagues to be daily leagues to make these changes because I'm aggressive like that. But when somebody like you, Howard, is doing 10, 12 leagues, it can't be done.
No.
In baseball.
In baseball. Yeah, I mean, listen, football's totally easy.
Click, done.
Listen, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It takes skill and determination and intelligence to win a fantasy baseball league. Okay? Any knuckle-dragging mouth breather can win a fantasy football league. As evidenced by a number of football championships that I've had, having to navigate through 15 leagues at a time and trying to make that happen. You just have to hit on some free agents. It doesn't work like that in fantasy baseball. Let's get back to some of the questions here that we've got going on. Stephen Feely over on Facebook, Craig, he wants to know, do you have more confidence in... Oh, geez. All right. This is going to be gross. Do you have more confidence in Blake Snell, Steven Matz the Bed, Nick Pivetta, I like him, Jake Junis? 4 guys, quality starts league, Mish. Who you going for there? Me personally, I'm going Pivetta, and I'm not even thinking twice about it, but maybe you've got a different story.
It sounds like the right call if he's going to be in a position to get those quality starts. That's my only issue with that one is, are the Phillies going to allow Pivetta, Howard, to throw those 6 innings that you're looking for there? I don't know. I think, in a quality starts league over wins, I think I would take Junis first, man. I really would. I think I like enough what I've seen. I would go Junis, I would go Pivetta, and then I would go Matz with the third. And who was the fourth? I lost you there on the fourth one.
Blake Snell?
Nah. I mean, I thought better things of Snell.
No, you could say Smell. It's okay.
Yeah, no good for me. Howard, let's not forget Pavetta's 9 strikeout performance last time out was against the Marlins. Okay, like he'll have more of those against the Marlins. But I think there is a ton of upside coming for Pivetta. Yes. But I'm not willing to go all in on that guy yet. It's the same thing with Tyler Mahle. We talked about him last week. What did he do? He got bombed by Cincinnati next time out. It's matchup. It's a matchup game with these guys. All the guys that he just mentioned are streaming options.
Yeah, absolutely. And and that's the funny thing too, is that you get guys who somebody emailed me about Mahle being bombed and just killing him the other day. I'm like, you're gonna get this. You're going to get this. You know who said it best? I think it was Todd Zola who actually said it best when he was talking about people rotating guys in and out of their lineup. You're missing. You're getting hit by a bad start, and you're immediately like, oh, fuck this guy. I'm dropping him. And you drop him. You add somebody else who's supposedly a streamer who supposedly has a good matchup, and that guy shits the bed. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to get rid of him, and I got to do that. And all of a sudden now you're streaming guys in, and you get a guy who does have a good start. You go with him the second time around. He gets bombed there, and all of a sudden you're pulling him out. So now all of a sudden what you've done for one roster spot is put in 3 shitty starts, 1 good start, and you're just cycling through this again. You're not taking the good with the bad. You're not understanding that a lot of these young pitchers are going to have their ups and downs. They're not Scherzer. They're not Kershaw. They're not Kluber.
Right.
And until you realize that, none of these guys that you're picking up and streaming right now are going to be Scherzer or Kluber or Kershaw. If they were, you would have heard these player comps already. I haven't heard a single person be like, oh, yeah, dude, Nick Pivetta, the sabermetrics look fantastic here, going to be Kluber-esque. It never happens. It's never said. So, to sit there and rotate these guys in and out, you think you're doing yourself a favor, but all you're doing is you're just destroying your ratios at this time.
Yeah, it just looked like a smarter move than it turned out that way at the beginning of the season to draft one of the top 15, top 20 guys. The only streaming options really when you look at that, Howard, and there aren't many of them, because when you look at Houston's rotation and Washington's rotation, Yankees, those are kind of the ones where even in a worst case scenario, when your guy gives up a lot of runs, you still have a chance to win. A good example of that last night on Pavetta's team is Ben Lively. That looked like a pretty good matchup against Cincinnati on paper, them being at home. And Lively had to fight his way through that. And it was only because Philadelphia scoring a bunch of runs did he get through that, even to a degree. Jhoulys Chacin on Milwaukee had a good, he had a good year last year. He hasn't looked good at all this year. And you're right. You find these guys and you're going to stick them in there, and you just don't know. But at the same time, you can strike gold. We sat here, was it last Thursday? And I was like, hey, Perdomo, you never know, and he did. He shut down Houston. Now next time out, Perdomo will probably give up 10 runs. But that's not the kind of risky game that you want to play, and it's not recommended. A guy that we talked about earlier in the web stream, Zach Godley, like that's a guy that you could start every single time out. 7 out of 10 times he's probably going to have a quality start. Those are the kind of guys that you could reach for as a number 3 starter on your fantasy team. Pivetta inevitably is going to be a 5 on your team. Junis is probably a 5 or a 4 on your team. You don't want to make up 4 guys like that because you're going to get hit.
Absolutely. All right, moving over to the YouTube page here. Thoughts on David Dahl's timing to come up? Is this dude ever going to show up here? I mean, this is ridiculous. They bring in Cargo, who's off to an okay start. It's not the be-all, end-all, but he's off to an okay start here right now. So Cargo's there. Blackman, the back issues are annoying, but so be it. And then you got Gerardo Parra. We championed him like 2 years ago.
He's the best. He's going to have a huge year.
Oh, my God. Ian Desmond, Ryan McMahon. You got all this crap coming up.
He's 0 for 11 with like 8 strikeouts. I mean, forget David Dahl, man. Seriously.
There you go.
I mean, for now, I don't even know that I would stash him. Like, I don't know what the Rockies are doing. I mean, I suppose when it gets warmer in Coors, we'll have something to talk about. But I mean, there's snow. There's still snowing in Chicago. This is just if you don't have it may change and the hitting comes alive, but man, if you don't have aces right now and you're forced to throw out this crap out there, the 4s and 5s or some of these teams, it's been a nightmare. And you're right. I mean, finding the tough hitting has been a problem, but I think I have a couple options for tonight. Oh, you know what? I was actually we just got a question about that, about some mid-tier pay down options for this evening. So please, by all means, Craig Mish, who you like tonight? Sean Manaea? Okay. Yeah, Manaea's okay. So I think Carlos Martinez, like on DraftKings, I think Carlos Martinez has to be paid for at 10,000. But I would run. I know it didn't work out necessarily as well as you would have wanted to last night, but I would run a mini stack against Texas. I think that's the team that I'm going to pick on a bunch. And Martin Perez. I'm going to go with Pujols for 3,200 at first base. I'm going to go Justin Upton for 4,300 in the outfield. Those are the 2 guys that I would target and run a little bit of a mini Angel stack. I mean, I got the sun in my face here. Yeah, that's the way that I would go with it tonight.
All right. Let's talk about some pitchers you're liking. How about Aaron Nola versus Cincinnati? Dallas Keuchel at Minnesota? How about Tyler Chatwood? Pittsburgh's been hot, but Chatwood looks so good, and I love him being out of Colorado right now.
Yeah, I like Chatwood too, but I'm not ready yet. He walked a bunch of guys last time, right?
No, not too many. Couple guys.
4. Am I wrong? I don't know. Double check that one. Listen,
I'm gonna double check that while you're yammering on about these other guys.
In Tout Wars, I have Tyler Chatwood. My 3 starters in Tout Wars are let Let me think about this. It's Max Scherzer, Noah Syndergaard, and I believe Chatwood is my 3. Like I was very big on him.
You only walked 6 guys, Mish. Come on.
Only 6.
One guy per inning. It was his first start.
Don't be a homer.
It was his first goddamn start.
Don't be a homer.
Don't. I bet. Zip. I swear to God, Mish. Don't be crapping on Chatwood.
I like Chatwood, but that's not the best guy on the board today. Stop it.
No, he's definitely not the best guy in the board. I mean, listen, obviously not the best guy on the board. If you're looking at if you want to know the best guy on the board, grab Chris Sale, Severino, Strasburg, DeGrom. I love Patrick Corbin against San Francisco. Why? Because they're a shit lineup.
The weather may be you may listen. Chatwood may go have a good start today, but I'm not gonna pick a pitcher that's going against a hot team, and Pittsburgh is hot. I'm just like I like Chatwood for the season, but against Josh Bell and Polanco and Corey Dickerson and Marte, like it's not that bad of a lineup. And no one wants Chatwood to win more than me. I need the win, but that I would rather throw Skaggs out there or even Minaya today.
Yeah, I like Minaya absolutely. So James Grande over at FantasyAlarm.com, he just put out the pitching coach. You guys can check that out over there. I'm curious because he's got somebody on there who I won't touch, but it is going against Kansas City. We're talking King Felix in Kansas City. Now, listen, Felix is not even remotely what he once was. But then you look at the Royals and you're like, wow, this lineup totally sucks. It's like worse than the Giants. But
I can buy it. Mm-hmm.
Then they just put a 10th spot up yesterday.
Yeah,
I mean, granted, it was Marco Gonzalez.
I don't love it, but I could. Listen, I could go with King Felix against Kansas City. I thought you were going to say Cashner. I thought that was the guy that you were going to throw at me.
It's pronounced Krashner.
I mean, Bowden on the show on Monday. Hey, who'd you pick up? Give me your good pickups. Well, I got Andrew Cashner for $1. What? Why? What are you doing? The Orioles, man. It's ugly.
Oh, yeah. All right, we got any more questions here? Oh, here we go. Scott Crump throwing out a couple of names that you just want to pee on. And this will be our last one, our last question here, because we're going to have to wrap things up on the stream. 12-team roto, 6x5, Gossman, Tehran, Erod, all sitting out on the free agent pool. Any of these guys worth a pickup, maybe to get rid of another one of these Royals pitchers that he has. So he wants to trade out either Duffy, Kennedy, and Junis for names like Gossman, Tehran, and Erod. I mean, if it's a race to see who can get triple-digit ERAs, well, then those 3 names look fantastic. But give me your thoughts.
I would cut Kennedy for Julio Tehran. I would do that.
Tehran?
He was good last night. Listen. I'm not totally off on Tehran yet. I may not start him until I see improvement, but he was good. Scherzer was better. You know, Tehran is going to make every start for you. Going to get the counting numbers. He may get clobbered sometimes, but I'm still not sold that the guy that we saw 2 years ago isn't the guy that we'll see the rest of the year. Gossman, obviously, I would not trust, but you would rather have Ian Kennedy than Tehran? Not me. I'd rather stash Tehran and see what happens.
Dude, I'd rather take that shot on maybe Erod, but I mean, listen, Tehran,
A-Rod for that matter.
Oh, A-Rod pitching for my team, that would be fantastic. I would dig that. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us here on the live stream. Again, you can catch me and Craig here every single Tuesday and Friday, noon Eastern. We run it for an hour. Get your questions in. We'll cover it all. And then, of course, there's an NFL live stream with me and Brandon Marianne Lee over here as well. And that's Thursdays from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. All things NFL. She's going to be repping Fantasy Alarm at the NFL Draft. We're going to be doing videos and live streams live from there. We'll be breaking down that first round, so you don't want to miss it. And again, guys, get your asses over to FantasyAlarm.com. Register in there. Check out the My Fantasy Alarm feature. Sync all of your leagues. One-stop shop. It's going to make your lives ridiculously easier, especially if you play in multiple leagues. So there you have it, Mish. What do you got coming up in the next few days?
Yeah, just doing the Sirius XM show every single day from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern. I think that the important thing for fantasy owners for the moment is kind of staying on the same topic, same narrative that we have. Is the bullpens are very shaky in April, and the ninth inning guys are losing their jobs a lot. We're also seeing some kids getting called up from the minor leagues, and we did not expect Hoskins, we did not expect Bellinger or Judge or Olsen to do what they did last year. I haven't seen a name yet that's been called up that has that profile, but you absolutely have to pay attention to that waiver wire. And this kid Blandino on the Reds, don't know a lot about him. But again, monitor the situation. Barreto, monitor him. Who's going to come up for Rougned Odor? Is this someone that's going to play every day, or is it going to be Profar? These things settle themselves out in June, but right now it's a lot of unsettled situations. Brett Phillips, another name I threw out there. Got to keep an eye on these guys.
I love the Profar mention there, right? He was supposed to be amazing.
I drafted him a couple leagues for sure over the years, but he's going to get a chance to play every day now, Howard, at second base. Good luck with
so
that.
Close, yet Profar.
Well done.
Right?
I like it.
I'm going to do a George Costanza. I'm going to end it off on a high note. Guys, thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Alarm live stream. For Craig Mish, I'm Howard Bender. We'll catch you guys again on Friday. Be good.